Hey, what's up guys? Mr. Dan here. Got another eBay find to show everybody. This martial arts collection, 18 movies on 6 DVDs. A little worse for wear, which is to be expected. These are not any kind of remastered editions or anything like that. Many of them are the same films that you find on these compilations. I have some of them. There's one whole disc. I have all three of them on another compilation. And then I wanted to show... I showed this. Hamilton Books pick up the Ultimate Dragon collection of 10 films. And it really is packaged as a package of Brucesploitation films. Enter the World of Dragons. Okay, so I showed that in the live stream, but I didn't open it up. So we're going to take a look at those. And I've always been sort of fascinated by Brucesploitation films. And what that means is, you know, upon the death of Bruce Lee, filmmakers wanted to capitalize on his legacy. So they wanted to find like the next Bruce Lee. And with varying degrees of shame and cringiness, they often would pass off people, either as Bruce Lee or the next Bruce Lee. There's one called Bruce Lee Fights Back from the Grave, which is pretty, if you've ever seen the thumbnail, it's pretty tasteless. There's another film called The Clones of Bruce Lee, which I've watched recently, which has 3 of the imitators, including Dragon Lee being one of them. And there's a new documentary coming out called Enter the Clones of Bruce Lee. You know, a lot of times they use the same return of, they use the word enter, they use the word, you know, Fists of Fury 2, 3, they use the word dragon, they just keep recycling the same titles into like, it's like a word salad of Bruce Lee knockoff films. Interviews all of the sort of the imitators and it just kind of gets their thoughts on what it was like to try to fill the shoes of Bruce Lee, and how for some of them they sort of tried to develop their own identity, but they couldn't escape the shadow of that, you know, because they were always being cast as the next Bruce Lee. And there's sort of different levels of Bruceploitation films. You have the really shameless ones where they're really like capitalizing on his death, and they're talking about, you know, him fighting back from the grave, and, you know, they're calling them clones of Bruce Lee. And then you have movies that are sort of their standalone movies. Then you have sort of like biopics. I just watched one the other day. I got to start writing these titles down. Starring Bruce Lee, who spelled it with L-I, usually. We used to call him Bruce Lie when I was a kid. I'll tell you his real name in a second here. But that was actually pretty good. Obviously, very much embellished as far as the history of Bruce Lee. But I even forgot that he was supposed to be Bruce Lee in the movie. I was just caught up in the action. It was actually pretty good. So you have those sort of semi-biographical, by semi I mean hardly true at all, biographies of Bruce Lee. And then you have movies where they just sort of package the guy as the next Bruce Lee. And you might see some nods to Bruce Lee movies, some signature moves and things like that, where they try to anyway. Like I saw one the other day that had sort of the upkick to the groin area that we saw in Enter the Dragon, where Bruce Lee hits O'Hara with it. It's also kind of cool to see that, because then you can kind of compare the moves. You know, obviously most of these guys weren't quite as fast and as skilled. Some of them I think were pretty skilled, to be honest with you. But you know, there was one Bruce Lee, so you can kind of tell the difference. So you have those films, and then you have films which were completely, they're standalone films, but then they marketed them as Bruce Lee films. And sometimes they even, I think in the documentary, they talk about how the one guy was really disgusted because in some foreign markets, they would change the title and they would say, you know, starring Bruce Lee, L-E-E. Ho Chung Tao. So that's Bruce Lee, L-I. Okay, he's the one that I remember from Kung Fu Theater on Saturday afternoons. Okay, and it can be confusing. A lot of the information you find on IMDb mixes up some of these Bruce Lee imitators. One of them, unfortunately, spent some time in prison. I thought that was this one. That was another one. And then 2 of them, IMDb says they have the same exact birth date. Well, I guess it's possible, but I don't think so. I think they're mixing them up. So that's why I'm really eager to see that documentary, sort of straighten everything out. Anyway, let's just take a look at these. Let's take a look at the back of this. This is hilarious. Dragon History, Legend of Bruce Lee lives. Yep. So then they have Meet the Dragons. So you've got Bruce Lee, L.E., Dragon Lee. I believe he was Korean. Pretty muscular guy. I'm starting to like him a lot. He's pretty good. Bruce Lee, Ho Chung Tao. That's the one that is. I would say he's the main one. And then Bruce Liang. Okay. It can get confusing because you might find instances where Bruce Lee was spelled L.E. So, it was interesting in the clones of Bruce Lee. They're all supposed to be clones of Bruce Lee. There's 3 of them. First of all, they don't look like each other. So if they were clones, wouldn't they look like each other? And they don't really look like Bruce Lee. This Bruce Lee, L.E., you put a pair of glasses on him, and if he has the same haircut, he kind of, sort of does until you get close. None of them really had the muscle tone, I don't think. Dragon Lee actually maybe came close, and he was probably a little more muscular as far as size-wise. And I know even like Bruce Lee, I think Ho Chung Tao, the main one, he can be somewhat toned, but also, I'm not going to say dad bod, but it depended on the movie. He could be pretty toned. I never really saw him quite approach Bruce Lee levels of fitness, although I have to say, he does move pretty well. I've often wondered, because of the cameras being cameras of the day, remember that scene in Dragon, the Bruce Lee story with Jason Scott Lee, where they tell him to slow down because the cameras can't keep up with him? With the cameras being what they were, I'm not going to say it doesn't matter, because, the actual Bruce Lee had these, this panache, this like flourish, this little bit extra that you really came across on the screen that some of these guys just didn't have. But as far as the moves, most of them actually look pretty good. I do notice that a lot of times they try to put things together with editing. He jumps in the air, they cut, you show a foot kicking someone in the face, they cut, and then he lands. Whereas if you watch Enter the Dragon, that would be all one fluid movement. But anyway, this is interesting because then they say, like, tracksuit fever. Yeah, a lot of tracksuits. This guy here was known as Kung Fu Hustle Star. Was he in Kung Fu Hustle? I don't know. Brutal Fight, Dragon Lee, Pinball Effects. I don't... Crazed Dragon. And then Ho Chung Tao is Avenging Bruce. Yeah, he did get revenge a lot. And then this shows some of the movies they were in. The Fist of Fury 3. Fist of Fury was remade so many times. And then there was all these like sequels. Eagle Claw style, okay. Lee as Lee's brother. I guess he played his brother in one of these movies. And then you have Bruce Liang, Fist of Fury. Bruce Lee trains. Bolo breaks him. So I don't know, I guess he gets beaten up by Bolo Young, who was in a lot of these. And then you have Bruce Pack. I don't know who that is at all. Pack versus Thug Life. I don't know, it's just kind of silly. Anyway, these are the movies. Bruce Liang is Kung Fu Superman. And then you have Muscle of the Dragon. I wouldn't be surprised if that was Dragon Lee. Muscle of the Dragon. Yeah, that's Dragon Lee. That's Dragon Lee, because he was pretty muscular. So, Macau during World War II, so that has nothing to do with Bruce Lee. Well, it's called Kung Fu Superman, so to be fair, that in that particular case, they didn't advertise it as such. Okay, let's look at the next one. Kind of a goofy picture. So this is Bruce Liang, I believe. Or it could be Bruce Lee, L-E. Return of the Dragon Pack. It's more times 4. So we have the Dragon Lives Again, Bruce Lee, the Star of Stars, Enter the Game of Death. See, they just keep recycling the same words. And Mission for the Dragon. Not to be confused with Muscle of the Dragon. Okay, so you got Bruce Lee. Then you got Bruce L.I., Ho Chung Tang. And this one is Dragon Lives Again. Spirit of... See, here's this is what I'm talking. The spirit of Bruce Lee goes to hell and is offered a chance to get out by fighting his way through various opponents, including 007. Oh, this one is one of the most infamous ones. Including 007, so James Bond, ninjas, and other assorted fighters. This campy classic is full of hard-hitting action. Top of the line, Kung Fu Mayhem, starring Bruce Liang. Yeah, this is one of the most notorious Brucesploitation ones, like one of the most tasteless ones. And then see, you'll have a movie, well, Mission for the Dragon. So they just, you know, they have the word dragon in there trying to recall the legacy of Bruce Lee, but it's pretty much its own movie. Carter Wong's in that one. He's good. And then let's see. Then we got Bruce Lee Lit the Fuse. Fist of Fury. Wait a minute. Bruce Lee Lit the Fuse. Is the explosion. Who's the explosion? Somebody's the explosion. These guys are the explosion, I guess. Bruce Lee, Bola Young, Bruce Lee, Bruce Pack. So I don't know. Bruce Pack is one I'm not familiar with. So yeah, you have the sort of sequels, Fist of Fury 3, Return of Fist of Fury, and then you have these two. Xing Wu versus Shaolin, and then Xing Wu versus Shaolin Part 2. So those could be completely separate, independent. Oh, seeking revenge for his murdered brother. Bruce creates a trail of destruction. So I guess there's two brothers named Bruce. Sure, that makes sense. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Some of them you just got to scratch your head. Anyway, but we'll stop it there for today, and we'll continue our discussion of Bruce. Wait, I'm putting in the wrong case. We'll continue our discussion of Brucesploitation films another time, and then I will actually review some of them, because there are some really good films in here, and some of them, to be honest, deserve the quality on these DVDs could vary greatly, and some of the quality on Tubi, to be honest, is not that great, but it's watchable. It reminds me of when I watched it when I was a child on my little TV. You know that we had an antenna, and we were if there was a thunderstorm, good luck. It was those days. So, you know, but it would be nice if somebody went through and picked out some of the better ones and came out with better editions. I don't know if there's really a desire for that, but anyway, we'll continue this with part 2, and then I'll follow that up with some reviews later.